Mercy Ships is a unique organisation because it is bringing services to countries that would otherwise never be able to access those services. It gives us the flexibility to bring first world healthcare to the developing world.
The diseases, the medical conditions we encounter are the diseases of poverty, abject poverty. Much of what we address would not be there if it weren't for the level of poverty in these nations.
The millions of people who either physically or financially do not have access to health care are staggering. People say to me, well, there's all these millions. How do you think you can change that? We can change the individuals one life at a time.
Just see people that need help, you realise that they have no way of getting help, and I want them to know that they're loved.
Love is a language that doesn't need words all the time. You can show compassion and care for them. We are volunteers, and I think that's part of what makes it beautiful. The people come to here with just a heart to serve and a heart to make a difference, and so that makes it a great environment.
Okay. See a bit more?
Yeah, there we go.
After the rejection and the ridicule and the hard lives that they've had up until this point, then to have a ward full of nurses and the other ship staff, people just pour out so much love on them. Love does make a difference.
Every single patient that comes in here does come away with not only physical healing but also emotional and spiritual healing as well.
What happens in their hearts is really what changes them, and that's what I think empowers them to go home and be people and to get jobs and to go to school and to believe in themselves.
This is really the setting that Mercy Ships fits into.
Bringing this hospital ship in, it's a state-of-the-art platform. Surgeons, nurses, professionals from all over the world, offering this free of charge at the highest standards is unique.
We're working hard here to leave a legacy of improved healthcare.
We can stand in the gap while we encourage the development of the healthcare systems in the nations in which we serve.
Mercy Ship gets very much the concept of training. We're always trying to do ourselves out of a job. That's perfect, really, because they've got the skills and they kind of get the program. That's kind of the aim, really.
We want the day to come when all the nations on earth are able to care for their people, and we have a long ways to go, especially as we're serving some of the poorest nations in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome from Mercy Ships, Mr. Russ Holmes.
Good morning. As you can see from the video, this next presentation is going to be very different from what you've heard this morning. When you think of Four Winds Interactive, you don't think of them saving lives. You think of them producing technology to help us share data and information with our employees or customers or whatever. But for this past year and this coming 12 months, Four Winds have really got behind Mercy Ships. And they are partnering with us in some incredible, unique ways to make us, as an organization, to be more effective so we can serve more people. But today I'm going to present you with some challenges. But before I do that, I want you to kind of think of, when you read the news, you see a lot of information in the news, a lot of atrocities happening in the world. Maybe Syria, maybe something in Asia, a typhoon hitting or whatever. And if you're like me, you could sit there watching your TV or looking at your screen and think, what can I do about that? And then we start thinking, I can't really do much about it. I'm a lawyer, or I'm an accountant, or I'm an IT person, or whatever. But I want you to imagine with me. And I want you to imagine a ship, fully staffed by volunteers, over 400 people on board. That ship, their crew not only volunteer their time, but pay for the pleasure of volunteering on board. In fact, David at Four Winds likes that concept so much he thought he'd install that here at Four Winds to have their employees pay to come and work for the pleasure. But that's what happens. And on board this ship, there's surgeons, there's anaesthetists, there's biomed technicians, there's ward nurses, there's school teachers, there's people that provide training, education, there's marine engineers, there's deck engineers, there's people that cook the food, clean the ship. We have a hair salon on board. But ladies and gentlemen, we don't need to imagine this, because for 37 years this has been a reality. That's how long our organization has been in business. We're a global non-profit organization, and since 1978 we've operated hospital ships to some of the poorest nations in the world. And Four Winds are a part of that. Well, where do we operate at the moment? For the past 20 years, Mercy Ships has had a very specific focus in West Central Africa, the countries highlighted on this screen there. But due to Ebola this past year, we're not able to handle Ebola patients on board this ship. And so we diverted the ship to Madagascar. I'm actually heading there this next week. We've been serving the nation of Madagascar this past year, and will continue to do so through June 2016. See, on board the ship, it's not just a ship, it's a hospital as well. We have 5 operating rooms, 82-bed hospital ward, we have a CT scanner on board, radiology, in fact, anything that you would find in a hospital here in the US. In fact, when you're on board the ship in the hospital, you wouldn't actually realize you're on the doorstep of Africa. Let's talk about some of the needs. When we pull into country, the ship, although we are a ship, we sail actually very little. We sail for 2 weeks out of the year, and that's to a shipyard for annual maintenance for the vessel, and then back into the next nation. So we stay in port for 10 months at a time. When we arrive in port, we have a team on the ground working ahead of the ship before its arrival. They work with the President, Ministry of Health of the country, and other partners, and we publicize the types of surgical procedures that we do, which I'll cover in a second. And then we rent a local facility away from the ship, and then we invite the people to come. And they literally come by the thousands. The photo you see there is from Benin, West Africa. There's over 5,000 people in the line there. Some of them have been stood there for more than a week, desperate to see our doctors, desperate for somebody to say, yes, I can help you, because they don't have access to healthcare, which you and I take for granted. And from that, we select the patients that we can help, provide them with a patient card to come back to the ship on a certain date, and then we provide a free life-changing surgery for them. So I want to cover some of the surgical specialities that we focus on. So we cover eye surgery. That would be particularly removing cataracts from the eye. We do a cataract surgery 1 every 10 minutes on board ship. So literally once every 10 minutes, somebody gets the sight back on board the ship, totally free of charge. Most of our patients that come to us live on less than $2 per day. So they don't, if their access to healthcare is available to them, they can't afford it. We also focus on maxillofacial surgeries, so cleft lip, cleft palate surgeries, removal of large facial tumors, as you saw in the video. That happens all the time. We do general surgery, goiters, hernias. We do pediatric orthopedics, so club feet, bowed legs, broken limbs, that type of thing on children. We also focus on plastic surgery. There's a lot of open fires, kerosene lamps that our patients use, and then you'll find a lot of children fall into the open fires, get burnt by a kerosene lamp, and all the skin melts and fuses together, and they lose restriction of sometimes the neck and the head and their arm and so forth. Severe burns. And then we also do a program for the ladies called vesical vaginal fistula, and that's ladies that have had prolonged childbirth, prolonged labor. And then imagine being in labor for you ladies that have had children. You could be in labor for up to 5 or 7 days, having no access to any type of maternal health care, certainly no pain relief. And then at the end of that 5 or 7 days, you pass a stillborn child. That is devastating. But not only that, but then you become incontinent. And some of our ladies that come to our ship are incontinent, some of them for 20 to 30 years. They get kicked out of the house, they get kicked out of the village because they smell, they're seen as cursed, So we actually have 4x4 vehicles that go out way out into the bush, go find these ladies, bring them back to the ship, and provide the surgery free of charge. I want to introduce you to a patient, and because I could talk about what Mercy Ships does, and that's great, but really it's down to the individuals. They're just people, just like you and I. So ALSENY up here on the right-hand side, and his twin sister on the left. ALSENY has a cleft lip, cleft palate, so he has no roof in his mouth, and no roof in the mouth, and then also obviously cleft lip. Can't feed from the mum, but obviously his sister can, and so they get severely malnourished. And actually, it's very common in the nations that we work. If you have a child that is born with cleft lip or cleft palate, you put that child out to die, leave him out in the bush, because they're seen as cursed. They don't realize it's a simple medical condition that actually, within less than an hour in surgery, could actually provide a life for them. So we put ALSENY on a nutritional program sponsored by Abbott Laboratories up in Chicago. They supply the nutritional products to us. And this is just a few weeks later on the nutritional program. We have to build up the body weight for them to go under anesthesia, for them to be able to survive the surgery, and this is how ALSENY looks today. Cute kid, huh? But if you'd have looked there, you wouldn't have said, cute kid. But now he can go and have a normal life. But we can do lots of wonderful things in the operating rooms on board the ship. Every year we do about 2,500 free surgical procedures on board. But I think the biggest impact that we can have as an organization is not to just carry on providing surgeries, just clearing the surgical backlogs from some of the countries that we go to. But I think the biggest impact that we can have is to train the local healthcare professionals. So we actually utilize the ship as a training platform. We work with the Ministry of Health, local hospitals, and we bring on the surgical teams from the local hospitals to brush up their skills so they can go back and be more productive in their settings. They can provide more care to their people. So the individual you see on the photo there, looking into the lens, is a guy from Togo, West Africa. He's an eye surgeon. In his own facility in Togo, he does anywhere from 200 to 250 eye surgeries a year. Now, to you and I that aren't eye surgeons, that sounds, oh, that's pretty reasonable. He worked with, on board the ship, and all of his support staff with him as well, for 3 months. Doing eye surgery, we train them on basic techniques, not on equipment that they don't have access to in the local facility, but very simple procedures to be able to remove the cataract from the eye, provide the sight back. After 3 months on board the ship, this surgeon here, Dr. Wadome, provided 200 eye surgeries in his first month off the ship, compared to 200 to 250 in a calendar year. So he's now doing 2,500 surgeries a year in his own facility, and actually volunteers his time to come back to the ship for 6 weeks every year and train other African surgeons. So we have an African training an African, which is very culturally appropriate. So I think that's the biggest impact that we can make as an organization, is partnering together, working with the Ministry of Health, providing training. So we provide training in all of the surgical programs that I mentioned earlier on, as well as we do programs off the ship, nutritional, agricultural training programs, safe surgery checklist, and lots of others by the WHO. But how does all this happen? Well, it takes partners. I've heard from the stage this morning a lot of talk about partnerships. We have a partnership with this person, we have a partnership with this organization. Mercy Ships is very blessed to have an incredible amount of partnerships. This is just a very small snapshot of our corporate partners. Mercy Ships, as I mentioned earlier, is a global organization. We have offices in 16 different countries around the world. As you can tell from my accent, I'm from Texas. I'm based in Texas now for the past 8 years, originally from Northern England. I myself have lived on board the ship for 8 years, and then now live on land and manage the corporate partnerships with a wonderful team that I get to work with. And we build some incredible partnerships. And so when you look at the partnerships on the board here, some of the corporations, they provide support to our organization in some incredible creative ways, whether it's from sutures that are used in surgery, whether it's to funding, whether it's to employee engagement programs, whether it's to co-branding, joint social media campaigns. But it's not just the corporations that provide the support. It's individuals just like you or I that support us on a monthly basis, no matter whether we have an office in South Korea that raises funds, or whether it's in the UK or anywhere else. And we're also supported by foundations, and that really goes towards providing the surgeries that we do. Before I move on to the next slide, I'm just curious, out of the audience here, how many of you have donated to charity, and the only time you've heard back from that charity is when they're making the next ask? That's sad, that, isn't it? I was putting my own hand up there as well, because I've done the same. Well, Mercy Ships wants to turn that on its head. I'm tired of, as a fundraiser, hearing people talk about other organizations, putting the asks out there, but really not providing the feedback. Our commitment, particularly with our corporate partners, is the area I look after in Mercy Ships, is to provide the feedback, the patient stories, to see the difference that your donor dollar makes to our organization. Now, some of you sat in the room here may never have even heard about Mercy Ships before I walked up on stage here. And considering we've been around for 37 years, like, what are you guys doing if we've not even heard of you? Well, Mercy Ships really don't spend a whole lot of money on advertising, PR, fundraising, that side of it. We're very careful what we do with the donor dollar. We want it to go and help the next ALSENY, or the next patient, the eye patient, or fistula patient, or whatever. And so that's our commitment to our donors, is making sure the donor dollar goes the furthest we possibly can. So that's where we're at the moment, but as David suggested earlier on, what Four Winds Interactive doing for the future, well, what's Mercy Ships doing for the future? If we can provide the direct services, we can provide training and education to the locals, well, we have a big vision. As an organization, Mercy Ships is just about to double in size in the next 3 years. Well, that's a big task for any organization, whether you're in the corporate world or certainly in the NGO world. Mercy Ships has always retrofitted older ships. We have one ship at the moment. We've had 5 ships in our history, 3 at any one time. We retired our older ships back in 2007, replaced them with the ship we have today. But 3 weeks ago, we actually started cutting steel on board this baby here. So Mercy Ships is pregnant. This thing's due in 2018. It's amazing what you can do with a computer. It looks like it's deployed and sailing already. But this ship is totally designed to be a complete training platform. It's twice the size of current ship, and from early 2018 onwards, we'll have 2 ships focused on Africa, providing the care that's needed, and also providing the training and education to really bring the healthcare in each nation that we visit up to the next level, to make an incredible impact. But rather than just talking about what we're doing and thinking about how you could be a part of it, I want to plant a seed with you today. And the seed I'm going to plant with you, I want to make sure, or I want to get the message across, is that let's do something different. You know, most of you put your hand up earlier on when you said you'd never heard back from a charity that you made a donation to. But how about we think about it this way? Four Winds are over here, Mercy Ships are over here. Four Winds are going to be supplying their technology free of charge to our organization to help us become more efficient, both on board our ships and at our head office in Texas. And I can't wait to have some of these screens up on our walls. In fact, the screens that David mentioned that they removed from their old offices, they're actually sat in our warehouse ready for installation because they donated the screens to us as well. But you guys sat here, you represent an immense amount of companies around the world, some huge companies. So let's have, in the future, Four Winds, Mercy Ships, and yourselves coming together to make an incredible impact in this world. And let's see the difference that we can make. I hope that in 12 months' time, I could potentially be here and kind of share some of the success stories that we coming together, collaborating to make the biggest impact. Not whether it's just you as your companies, you as individuals, or think about this, you and your customers. What an incredible story to tell to your customers of how we're all coming together, we're partnering together. We heard about this organization at this Forward conference. So when you're back in the office next week with your colleagues, say, how was the conference? Oh, well, it was all right. You know, we heard about some technology, we heard about this, we heard about that. But there was one guy on stage. He challenged us to do something completely different and turn charity on its head to make an incredible impact. And if we do that, we'll see an immense difference in the lives of the people you're just about to see on stage right now. If you can roll the video, thank you.